Denise was still wearing her wedding ring when she found out she'd been divorced for 6 months. Her husband Marcus just forgot to mention it. 2 years ago, she was standing in her tiny apartment kitchen at 6 in the morning. Her kids, Maya, 5, and DJ, 3, still asleep in the other room. She hadn't slept more than 3 hours in weeks. And every single morning, the same thought crept in. He threw me away like I was nothing. See, the world thought Denise was just another woman whose marriage didn't work out. But the truth, it was darker than that. Marcus didn't just leave her. He divorced her in secret, behind her back, filed the papers, went to court, finalized everything. She was still calling him her husband, and legally, she was already single. She just didn't know it yet. But here's the thing about life. Sometimes it lets the wrong people think they got away with everything, and then it flips the whole game. Because that same broken woman standing in that tiny kitchen, she was about to win $2 million. And the man who threw her away, he was about to show up at her door, begging to come back. But Denise wasn't the same woman anymore. And what happened next, he never saw it coming. To understand how brutal this betrayal was, you have to know who Denise was before the world broke her. 10 years ago, she wasn't a waitress scraping for tips. She was a girl in love with a man who looked her in the eye and promised that if she supported him now, he'd take care of her forever. They started with nothing, just 2 kids in a cramped apartment. Marcus had the ambition, but Denise, she was the fuel. She worked double shifts to pay his tuition. She put her own career on hold to raise their babies, Maya and Jalen. She told herself, his success is our success. But looking back, that was her first mistake. She made herself small so he could feel big. And once Marcus started making real money, he didn't say thank you. He just changed. It started with the clothes. He began buying expensive Italian suits while Denise was still shopping for the kids at Goodwill. And when she complimented him one morning, he didn't smile. He just brushed past her in the hallway. She reached out to fix his collar, and he actually flinched. "Don't touch the fabric, Denise," he snapped, his voice cold as ice. "Your hands are greasy from the kitchen. I can't have you ruining this." That was the moment she felt it, the coldness. It was like a slap in the face. Denise blamed herself. She looked in the mirror and thought, is it me? Am I too old? Too boring? Maybe I'm just an anchor dragging him down. She tried harder. She cooked his favorite roast beef. She kept the kids quiet in the evenings. She practically begged for a smile. She was fighting a war to save her marriage. But she didn't know the war was already lost. Because while she was folding his laundry and worrying about being a better wife, Marcus wasn't just pulling away. He was texting his lawyer, and he was planning an exit so cruel, Denise never saw it coming. Denise walked back up the driveway after dropping Maya and Jalen at the bus stop, the morning air crisp and cold against her cheeks. She was holding a stack of mail she'd pulled from the box without really looking at it, mostly flyers and a few bills she was dreading. She walked into the house, kicking off her sneakers by the door, the silence of the rental wrapping around her. She tossed the mail onto the chipped laminate counter and went to pour herself a cup of coffee, but as the pile of envelopes slid across the surface, one stopped. It was thick, white, official, and it had the seal of the county clerk's office stamped in the corner. Denise frowned, wiping her hands on her jeans. She didn't have any parking tickets. They didn't have any lawsuits. Why would the court be writing to her? Curiosity, not fear, was what she felt as she slid her thumb under the flap and tore it open. She pulled out the stack of stapled papers, smoothing them flat. The first word she saw was typed in bold, black capital letters. Decree. She blinked, sipping her coffee, her brain not quite processing it. She read the next line, Final Decree of Divorce. The coffee cup slipped from her fingers. It hit the floor with a ceramic shatter, splashing hot liquid over her socks, but Denise didn't even flinch. She couldn't feel her feet. She could only stare at those words. Petitioner, Marcus Robinson. Respondent, Denise Robinson. Status, finalized October 14th. The room started to spin. October 14th? That was 3 months ago. Her mind raced back, frantically trying to remember that day. October 14th. That was the day they had taken the kids to the pumpkin patch. She remembered it perfectly. Marcus had held her hand, he had bought her a cider, he had smiled at her while Jalen picked out a pumpkin. They were married then. They were happy then. How could a judge say they were divorced? This is a mistake, she whispered, her voice shaking. This is a prank. She frantically flipped to the last page. And there it was. Her signature, Denise Robinson in blue ink. But as she stared at it, she saw the truth. The loop on the D was too wide, the S was too sharp, and right next to it was a notary stamp, authorized by Jimmy P. Miller. Denise froze. Jimmy Miller. That was Marcus's shady friend from college, the one who always bent the rules. Marcus hadn't just forged her signature, he'd used his connections to stamp it official. He had legally erased their marriage without her ever stepping foot in a courtroom. The betrayal was so sharp, so violent that she gagged. She scrambled for her phone, dialing Marcus. Ring, ring, click. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Not voicemail, disconnected. Panic, cold and sharp, flooded her veins. She turned and sprinted up the stairs, bursting into their bedroom. The bed was made, but the closet doors were slightly ajar. She yanked them open. And there it was, the sound of wire hangers rattling against a metal bar. Empty. His side of the closet was bare. No suits, no shirts, just dust bunnies. He had cleared it out this morning, in the 20 minutes while she was at the bus stop. He had waited for her to leave, packed his life into bags, and walked out like a ghost. And then a new terror seized her. The money, she gasped. She ran back to the bedroom, grabbing her phone. They had a joint savings account, $11,000. It was their safety net. She opened the banking app. The little wheel spun on the screen. Loading, loading. Please, God. The screen flashed white. Available balance, $0.00. Recent transaction, withdrawal, closing balance, 8:15 a.m. He had stopped at the bank on his way out. He had drained every single penny. Denise sank to the floor, her back sliding down the front of the dresser until she hit the carpet. She was 34 years old, sitting on the floor of a rented house with 2 children coming home in 4 hours, and she didn't have a husband or a dollar to her name. He hadn't just left her, he had executed a plan to destroy her. The next few months were a blur of survival, fear, and exhaustion that settled deep into Denise's bones. She didn't have time to mourn her marriage because she was too busy trying to keep her children from starving. With Marcus gone and the bank account empty, the reality of her situation hit hard and fast. The rent was due in 2 weeks, the electric bill was past due, and the fridge was getting emptier by the day. She went from being a stay-at-home mom to working 2 jobs almost overnight. Her morning started at 4:30 a.m. She would wake up before the sun, tiptoeing past the kids' room to get ready for her shift at Pete's Diner, a greasy spoon downtown where the tips were low and the customers were grumpy. She'd spend 8 hours on her feet, pouring coffee for truckers and wiping down sticky tables, smiling when she wanted to scream, just hoping to make enough in tips to buy dinner that night. Her feet would throb, her back would ache, but she couldn't stop. At 2 p.m., she'd race to pick up the kids from school, help them with homework for an hour, feed them whatever cheap meal she could scramble together, usually pasta or beans on toast, and then hand them off to her neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, who watched them for free out of pity. Then it was off to her second job, cleaning offices downtown from 6 p.m. until midnight, scrubbing toilets, emptying trash cans filled with the remnants of other people's successful lives, vacuuming endless miles of gray carpet. It was humiliating. She used to be the one who managed a household budget. Now she was the one invisible woman pushing a cleaning cart while executives worked late, not even looking up as she emptied their bins. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional torture. Every time the phone didn't ring, she felt a fresh stab of abandonment. Maya, her 7-year-old, started asking the questions Denise dreaded most. One night, while Denise was tucking her in, Maya looked up with big, watery eyes and asked, "Mommy, is Daddy not coming back because I was bad?" The question shattered Denise's heart into a million pieces. She had to swallow the lump in her throat, force a smile, and stroke Maya's hair. "No, baby," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You were perfect. Daddy just got lost. He made a mistake. But we have each other, okay?" But inside, Denise was screaming. How could he do this? How could he leave his little girl thinking it was her fault? The anger burned hot in her chest, but she had nowhere to put it. She couldn't afford a lawyer to chase him. She couldn't even afford to find him. He had vanished completely, likely to another state with the other woman she heard rumors about, a younger woman named Chloe who worked at his gym. The humiliation was public, too. In their small town, people talked. When Denise went to the grocery store using food stamps for the first time in her life, she saw the whispers. Former friends, people who had come to her barbecues, people who had drunk her wine, would duck down aisles to avoid her. Or worse, they'd give her that pitying look, the one that said, "Poor thing, her husband traded her in." It made her feel small. It made her feel like a failure. There were nights when she didn't think she could make it. One particularly brutal Friday, after her cleaning shift, she came home to find a "Final Notice" sticker on the front door from the power company. She had $12 in her wallet until payday on Monday. She walked into the kitchen, sat on the floor in the dark, and just wept. She cried until she couldn't breathe, her body shaking with the weight of it all. She looked at her hands, rough, red, chapped from cleaning chemicals, and thought, is this it? Is this my life now? Just struggling until I die? The fear was suffocating. She was one sick day away from losing the apartment, one broken car part away from homelessness. She felt like she was drowning in the middle of the ocean, treading water with her kids on her back, while the rest of the world sailed by on luxury yachts. But even in that darkness, a tiny spark of defiance flickered. She wiped her face on her sleeve, stood up, and looked at the picture of Maya and Jalen on the fridge. "No," she whispered to the empty room, "he doesn't get to win. I won't let him break us." She didn't know how she was going to fix it, but she knew she wasn't going to quit. She washed her face, put on her diner uniform for the morning shift, and got ready to fight another day. She had no idea her entire life was about to pivot on a simple $2 whim. It started like any other exhausted Thursday at Pete's Diner. The lunch rush had been brutal. Spilled coffee, impatient customers, and a grill cook who was screaming orders. Denise was wiping down table 4, her back screaming in protest, when her coworker, an older waitress named Barb, slapped a piece of paper onto the counter. "All right, Dee," Barb said, popping her gum. We're doing the office pool. Mega Millions is up to 400 million. Everybody's putting in $2. You in?" Denise stared at the paper. $2. It sounded like nothing to most people, but to her, right now, $2 was a loaf of bread. $2 was a gallon of milk. $2 was the difference between Jalen having a snack for school or going without. She almost said no. She should have said no. Her practical brain was screaming, "Keep the money, you idiot!" But then she looked at Barb's hopeful face. She looked at the other waitresses, all tired, all overworked, all hoping for a miracle. And for a split second, Denise just wanted to be part of something. She wanted to feel lucky, even just for a minute. "Okay," she sighed, digging into her apron pocket and pulling out 2 crumpled dollar bills, her only tips from the last hour. "I'm in, but if we lose, you owe me a coffee." Barb laughed, snatched the money, and wrote Denise R. on the list. Denise went back to wiping tables and forgot about it instantly. 3 days later, on Sunday morning, Denise was in the kitchen trying to make pancakes with water because they were out of milk. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Then it started ringing. She wiped her floury hands on a towel and picked it up. It was Barb. "Hello?" Denise answered, sounding tired. "Dee?" Barb screamed on the other end. The sound was so loud Denise had to pull the phone away from her ear. "Dee, are you sitting down? Tell me you are sitting down." Denise frowned, her heart skipping a beat. "Barb, what is it? Is the diner closing? Did I get fired?" "No!" Barb was sobbing now, happy, hysterical sobs. "Dee, check the group chat. Check the numbers. We won! Oh my God, we won!" Denise stood frozen in her tiny kitchen. The spatula dropped from her hand. She put the phone on speaker and opened the text thread. There was a photo of a ticket and a screenshot of the winning numbers: 12, 45, 08, 22, 09. The numbers matched perfectly. Every single one. The jackpot was $420 million. Barb was yelling through the phone. There were 30 of us in the pool. Dee, do the math. That's 14 million each. After taxes, Dee, we're going to clear over $7 million. The world went silent. The sound of the fridge humming, the kids laughing in the other room, Barb screaming on the phone, it all faded into a white noise. $7 million. Denise grabbed the counter for support as her knees gave out. She slid down to the floor, gasping for air. $7 million? That wasn't just rent money. That wasn't just grocery money. That was freedom. That was college for Maya and Jalen. That was a house no one could ever kick them out of. That was a life where she never had to scrub another toilet or serve another rude customer again. Tears started streaming down her face, hot, fast tears that she couldn't stop. She wasn't crying from happiness, not yet. She was crying from relief, the kind of relief that feels like a physical weight being lifted off your chest after holding it for months. "Mommy?" Jalen wandered into the kitchen holding his toy car. He saw her on the floor, tears wet on her cheeks, and his little face crumbled. "Mommy, are you sad?" Denise looked up at him. She saw his worn-out t-shirt, she saw the hole in his sock, and for the first time in 2 years, she smiled, a real, genuine smile. She pulled him into her arms and squeezed him so tight he squeaked. "No, baby," she sobbed, burying her face in his neck. "No, Mommy isn't sad. Mommy is finally okay. We're going to be okay." She held him there on the kitchen floor, rocking back and forth, knowing that outside that door, the world had just shifted on its axis. The struggle was over. But she had no idea that the real drama, the return of the man who broke her, was just about to begin. News travels fast in a small town, but news about $14 million travels at the speed of light. Within 48 hours, Denise's face was on the local news. "Local waitresses strike gold," the headline read. There was a photo of the diner crew all screaming and spraying cheap champagne. Denise was in the back, smiling a shy, stunned smile, holding her kids. She looked radiant. She looked free. And apparently, someone else thought so too. It was 3 weeks later. Denise had just moved into her new house, a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial with a big wraparound porch and a yard where the kids could finally run. She was in the driveway, supervising the movers as they carried in a brand new velvet sofa. She was holding a cup of coffee, an expensive latte from a cafe, not the instant stuff she used to drink, when a silver sedan pulled into her driveway. Denise frowned. She didn't recognize the car. It looked beat up, rusted around the wheel wells. The engine sputtered and died, and the driver's door creaked open. A man stepped out. He looked thinner than she remembered. His hairline was receding a bit more. His expensive suit looked worn and wrinkled, and he had dark circles under his eyes. But she would know that walk anywhere. It was Marcus. Denise froze. Her heart hammered in her chest, not with love, but with a sudden, sharp spike of adrenaline. The movers walked past her with a box, oblivious. Marcus spotted her. He hesitated for a second, adjusting his tie, and put on a smile, a nervous, wavering smile. He started walking toward her, holding a bouquet of grocery store carnations, the cheap ones, wrapped in plastic. "Denise," he said, his voice cracking a little. "Wow, you look incredible." He stopped a few feet away, like he was waiting for an invitation to come closer. Denise didn't move. She didn't speak. She just stared at him, her face completely unreadable. I saw the news," Marcus stammered, gesturing vaguely to the house. "Congratulations, really. I always knew good things would happen to you." He took a step closer, his confidence growing slightly when she didn't scream at him. "Look, Dee, I know I messed up. I know things ended badly." "Badly?" Denise finally spoke. Her voice was calm, deadly calm. "You forged my signature. You drained our bank account. You left your children without a father and your wife without a penny to buy milk." Marcus flinched, looking around to see if the movers were listening. I know, and I've hated myself every day for it. I was in a dark place, Dee. The business was failing. I was panicked. That woman, Chloe, she manipulated me. She wasn't who I thought she was." He dropped to his knees right there on the concrete driveway. He looked up at her with big, wet eyes, the same puppy dog look he used to use when he wanted to buy a new car or skip dinner with her parents. "She left me, Denise, taking everything. I have nothing. I'm living in a motel. And when I saw your face on TV, I realized it wasn't the money I missed. It was you. It was us. I want my family back. I want to be a father to Maya and Jalen again. Please, give me a second chance." He reached out to grab her hand. His fingers brushed her skin. And in that moment, time seemed to stop. Denise looked down at this man who had been her world, this man who once held all the power. She looked at his cheap flowers, she looked at his desperate eyes, and she realized something profound. The fear was gone. The insecurity, that voice that told her she wasn't enough, was silent. She didn't see a husband. She didn't see a partner. She saw a stranger who tried to break her and failed. Maya and Jalen ran out onto the porch then. Mammy, can we pick our rooms?" they shouted, laughing. They stopped when they saw the man on the ground. "Daddy?" Maya whispered, confused. Marcus's face lit up. "Maya, baby, it's Daddy!" He started to stand up, reaching for them. "Stop," Denise said. It wasn't a shout. It was a command, sharp as a whip. Marcus froze, mid-rise. "Don't you dare take another step toward my children," Denise said, stepping between him and the porch. She stood tall, her shoulders back, looking every inch the queen of her new castle. "You lost the right to that title the day you walked out and left us to starve." "Denise, please," Marcus begged, tears actually spilling now. "I can change. We can be a family. With the money, think of what we could do together. We could travel. We could start over." Denise laughed then, a dry, humorless laugh. "Oh, I am starting over, Marcus. I started over the day I scraped $2 together to buy that ticket. But you?" She looked him up and down with pure, cold indifference. "You're just a ghost from a life I don't live anymore." She pulled her phone from her pocket, the new iPhone she had bought yesterday. "Now, you have exactly 10 seconds to get off my property before I call the police for trespassing. And trust me, I can afford the best lawyers in the state now." Marcus stared at her, his mouth hanging open. He looked for a trace of the old Denise, the one who would forgive him, the one who would cave, but she wasn't there. He scrambled backward, nearly tripping over his own feet. He dropped the flowers on the driveway. He retreated to his rusted car, casting one last desperate look at the mansion, at the kids, at the woman he had thrown away. Then he got in and drove off, defeated. Denise watched his car disappear down the road. She didn't feel sad. She didn't feel angry. She just felt light. She turned around, looked at her beautiful children waiting on the porch, and walked up the steps to join them. She kicked the cheap carnations into the trash can on her way inside. That afternoon, as the sun began to set behind her new home, painting the sky in shades of gold and violet, Denise sat on her porch swing. The movers were gone. The house was quiet, filled with the promise of a new beginning. Maya and Jalen were playing in the massive front yard, chasing each other through the grass, their laughter ringing out clear and happy. It was the sound Denise had fought for. It was the sound of safety. She thought about Marcus driving away in that rusted car. She heard later, through the small-town grapevine, that he tried to stay in town for a few weeks, telling anyone who would listen that he was the victim, that his rich wife had cut him off, but nobody bought it. The truth about the forgery, the secret divorce, and the drained bank account had come out. He was a pariah. Eventually, he left town for good, moving back in with his parents 2 states away, broke and alone. He had gambled his family for a fantasy, and he had lost everything. But Denise didn't dwell on him. She looked down at her hands, hands that had scrubbed toilets, hands that had carried heavy trays, hands that had wiped away her children's tears in the dark. They were manicured now, soft and rested, but underneath the strength was still there. The money hadn't saved her, she realized. The money had just given her options. What saved her was the refusal to give up when the world tried to bury her. What saved her was that $2 spark of hope in a diner kitchen. She took a sip of her tea and watched her children run. She wasn't just a lottery winner. She was a survivor. She was a mother who had walked through fire and come out the other side, not just unburned, but forged into steel. So, if you're watching this right now and you feel like you're at your breaking point, if you feel like you've been abandoned or betrayed or like the walls are closing in on you, listen to me. Denise's story isn't just about winning money. It's about winning back your worth. Sometimes life has to break you down completely so you can be rebuilt stronger than you ever imagined. Sometimes the people who leave you are doing you the biggest favor of your life, clearing the space for the blessings that are trying to find you. You might not have a winning ticket in your pocket today. You might be counting pennies for milk. You might be crying on the bathroom floor. But don't you dare give up, because your luck can change in a single heartbeat. Your Tuesday is coming. Hold on, keep fighting, and remember, the best revenge isn't anger. It's happiness. It's peace. It's looking at the person who said you were nothing and smiling because you know you are everything.